everyone, it's Synth Designer back again with another video. Today I'm excited to talk about my latest track, Expressions. It's on Spotify right now, and we're going to just talk about all the elements and go into kind of a deep dive into the song. Hopefully this kind of gives you all some ideas on how to create kind of your own Chillwave, Chillsynth type of track. And of course, I will be showing you some of the sound design elements, the arrangements, and just basically everything we can think of behind the song. If you want to listen to the track right now, it's on Spotify, Apple Music, all the streaming platforms, and I'm going to play you different elements and we're going to talk about them. Before we get into everything, head over to synthdesigner.com where you'll be able to download a lot of different presets from my preset packs on Serum and Vital, absolutely free. There's no charges, no signups required, and a lot of the sounds you'll hear in this are from those preset packs. If you want to support me, you can send over a donation, or you can join my Patreon page for only a couple bucks a month, where I send out 10 to 15 different Serum presets. But why don't we get right into this video? So in the intro, you heard a few bars there, about 12 bars, maybe 15 bars, I forget exactly. But we're going to talk about just those beginning elements. And the main sound there that you heard was pattern 1 and pattern 8 with the arps. And we're going to talk about those right now. The main synth here is really kind of the focal point of the song and something I created that I just really like. And it comes from Serum, but also with some third-party plugins. So this is from my preset pack called Chill Vibes Volume 2, which you can download for free. This is called Subtle Pitcher, and it's just got a great sound to it. Now, let's keep in mind here that the sound is actually also influenced by some third-party plugins, but let's hear it. Actually, let's just play the pattern. So those are just the 4 basic chords there, and as you can hear, it's got a lot of character to it. So as you see here, it's got this MS saw with only 4 voices unison, got kind of a tighter, kind of low MG low 18 filter, a very basic amp envelope, and then it's got this envelope here that just slightly opens it up. Now with chill synth type of music, chillwave music, it's all about the subtlety, and it's all about getting different forms of detunement. So as you see here, it's super simple. I have reverb on the actual preset, but I took it off here to just use my own third party, and it's blended with other chords as well, other synths, so I really wanted it to be on its own bus. And then I kind of cut out some of the lows. But let's take a look at some important elements here. So as you see here, I took out a bunch of lows from it using an EQ. Then I have a little bit of compression, not very much. Let's just see here. Yeah, a couple dB of compression here. Then I have this really important distortion element, which is isotope trash 2. As you can see here, it's only up about a quarter of the way, and that's because if I turn it up, it gets really grimy. But it's got a nice kind of pure sound to it without it, but I really wanted some griminess to it. The other thing I introduced here was this Chow tape model. This is a free plugin and I really love it. It's got just some great elements to it. So I have this flutter on here. Let's just, if I take this off, and then back on, you could hear it's got that subtle flutter nature to it. If I turn up the depth, you could really hear it. That sounds great too. I don't have it quite that high. And it just introduces just a little bit of kind of instability detunement that I really like hearing in Chillsynth. I have kickstart here, which comes into play here. Actually, I automated it to kick up into starting in bar 13. The first 12 bars have none, but once I introduced the kick, I really wanted to have a little space, and I kind of gave it more character here. So we'll hear that in a little bit. Then I also have ozone imager. Now that I moved it over to bar 13, you can hear it opened up more, right? And that's that filter opening up. And of course, you could also hear the sidechain coming in. So we'll take a look at that in a minute. But first, let's look at this ARP2. So these two main elements really are the driving force behind the whole song. And if you've heard the song, you really kind of, you know it. So let's take a look at how I created this. One thing you'll notice too is I don't have a lot of patterns here. I found that a lot of these sounds really took up a lot of space and really gave it a nice, rich dimension without adding too many layers. Of course, I added layers in spots, but with all the saturation, I found that it really just did the job without adding too much. I didn't want to overdo it. I felt like the elements here really spoke for themselves. So pattern 8 here, this is from my first Chill Vibes. It's called Sick Frog. It's a lead. I have this noise here. Let's just listen to the pattern. That noise adds a lot. And you can see here actually it's key track, so it adds some sounds here too. I added some more saturation, but a lot of the work is being done by Serum here. And this is such a driving force. I don't know where kind of the idea came from, but it really, I wanted some sort of kind of rhythmic element, some sort of repeatable element, and it really kind of cuts through the mix so well, first of all, and then just adds so much character. I added some tape saturation here. It's pretty subtle. I feel like it adds those upper harmonics a little bit of compression here, not too much, and then some reverb. And that's it there, but it's adding so much kind of dimension. As you can see here, I actually have the filter coming up again, and the noise level is from Serum is actually coming up. So when it starts, it's really subtle, and then I have parts of the song where it kind of cuts in and it gets higher and lower, and then I have the bass coming in as well here. So the bass is super simple, and I find that in Chillsynth songs, so you can take it in a couple different ways. You can make it really simple and kind of off to the background, or there's other times where there's more intricate kind of patterns. But I found that this one really needs something simple. There was already that rhythmic element from the arps, and I wanted something kind of more in the background. So let's take a look at it. As you can see here, it basically couldn't be any simpler of a preset. It is a sub sine wave here, and then it has a little bit of a saw here, which is cut off by the filter, and that adds a little bit of harmonic content. As you can hear, super simple sound. And that saw is adding just that nice harmonic content. If you can't hear the sub here, then you should try listening on like nice headphones or some monitors. If you're listening on your laptop or basic speakers, or basic headphones, you might not be able to hear that. However, that is also the point of adding those harmonics, because some people do like listening on kind of tablets or your phones or whatever, and that extra harmonic content actually comes through a lot better and kind of shows that there's a bass there. So that comes in, again, I slowly introduce it. Then I have some drums coming in. Very simple drum pattern here. especially at the beginning. I think it's just a kick here, pattern 2 to start. That kick is super thumpy. It's got just that kind of perfect chill wave kind of element of being thumpy and kind of cut off at under 2000 hertz here. Again, if you want it to come through more, I added a lot of compression and some limiting. It's actually not that much, but it will do the job to make it come through a little bit more. And then we'll talk about some drums as they evolve here. Then this last element I want to talk about before we move on is pattern 7, and that is a layer here. This wide detuned layer really adds a complementary element to that main synth. That main synth does a lot of work, but I found it wasn't really reaching all those upper harmonics, and I didn't want it to because it's not really meant to, especially with all that distortion and that noise. I felt like if I pushed that really up in the upper harmonics, that would have really been kind of unpleasant. So I left it more towards kind of the middle. As you can see, it peaks here. I kind of automated in different ways for the cutoff, but this one is a little bit simpler here. As you can see, I bring it in a little bit slowly. So let's take it from here, and let's take it from bar 9. Let's notice what's coming through here. So the bass starts to come in, then the wide detuned synth comes in. Again, you'll need good monitors or good pair of headphones to really appreciate it. And then we have a change in kind of tone because the arps develop a different pattern. And then we have kickstart coming in to give it more of a sidechain sound. So we're going to go from here up until when the drums cut off here, and then that will take us into a different section of the song. So I went a little bit further there. As you can hear, those arps change a little bit. And the only thing that changed about those arps there is that I kicked it up an octave, and that adds kind of a different element. I find that sometimes you don't want to be repeating too much, especially since I don't have kind of like a main lead here. I really wanted to kind of give something a little bit different for the listener, and I just kicked up the arps an octave, and it really added a different sound. But let's go back to that wide detuned synth here in pattern 7 and take a look at it. It's super simple. It's got 4 voices unison, a basic saw wave, pretty opened up in the filter. And then again, I cut off the reverb because I made the reverb all in one bus, and I cut off a bunch of the lows here. Aside from that, again, a little bit of compression, kickstart 2 to give it a little bit of that sidechain feel, and then some mid-side EQ, accentuating those sides where that main synth might not be reaching. As you can hear, that when that comes in, it adds a little bit of that fullness that we didn't have before. As we talked about, the drums were super simple. We have a couple different patterns here. Let's take a look at pattern 4 and just play it. So just that kick and a wood block, and that does the job. Then we'll quickly move on to pattern 5 here, which is the next drum pattern. And let's listen to that. I didn't want just a basic 4 on the floor. I felt like a little bit of rhythmic element would be nice to it, especially since it's a simple song. If I had just a basic 4 on the floor, I didn't think it would have enough of an impact. As you can see here, we have that nice soft shaker, and it's got that nice element to it. Again, I put kickstart on it. Again, that's just to add a little bit of a sidechain element to it. Over here, we have that low block again. And then 2 layers of claps. One more up the middle, as you can hear. And then kind of a reverby wide clap. And those really do the job there. Again, it's a simple song. I didn't want too many patterns, and I only have those 3 different patterns for the drums throughout the whole song. I probably could have added 1 or 2 more percussive elements, but I wanted to keep it simple here. Then I have this other element coming in here, right at the end of that section, and it's super simple and is really subtle. You didn't hear it very much, but let's play the pattern. It follows the basic chord progression, but doesn't play it in chords, just single notes. This is actually, again, from Chill Vibes Volume 2 called Crooked Cookie. I don't know why I came up with that name, but it's a great sounding synth again. And as you can tell, it's got some really nice detuned elements. Quickly taking a look, it's got that sidechain again, because that sidechain element comes through, especially throughout the whole song. So you really want to kind of match it with your other synths. Otherwise, it's going to kind of really stand out too much. But as you can see, it doesn't have many third-party elements, just the basic EQ and sidechain. So the entire sound here that you're hearing is basically through Serum. It's got the saw wave here, it's got the slow attack, and this envelope again, adding just almost nothing to the opening of it. I just find adding that subtle element really kind of adds a nice kind of change. I have some noise here, the chorus noise. Again, it's not being changed too much in the level here through this envelope. Then I have a bunch of chorus, some delay here, reverb again turned off because I have it through the synth bus, and then some compression, not doing a ton. I am boosting a bunch through the EQ here in the kind of the mid highs. It's hard to really pick it up, but it adds just a little bit of element to it in the mix. Let's just hear this part, try to pick it out in the mix here. As you can hear, it's really subtle there. When the drums kind of cut out there, you can hear a little bit more. But again, it's just adding a layer without adding too much. Otherwise, if I turned it up too much in the mix, it would really start to get muddy. One thing with Chillsynth you have to be careful of is when you start layering your synths too much, it can get really muddy. And that's why I didn't layer too much here. I really just wanted kind of that main synth coming through without too much interference. Then we go into this section here where it's really kind of coming down in energy a little bit, and it heads into the outro. The outro is pretty similar to the main part of the song that we just heard, but let's listen to kind of this descent of energy and then rising back up, and let's pay attention to some of the automation elements and what I cut in and out. Again, it's a simple song, so there's not a lot of elements here. There will be one new element here, the drone, that we'll talk about. Aside from that, it's pretty simple and we don't need to go into too much detail other than let's listen in on how some of these automation processes work. And that's a huge part of this Chillwave sound. So let's go into right before the outro here. So I think one of the more obvious elements there is first the drums cut out, then we have that prominent kind of arp going through, and then that drone comes into play, and that drone really does a lot of heavy lifting there, as it would sound pretty empty otherwise. And I took out the main synth for the first time in the song, and I slowly introduce it back in. But let's listen to that drone first on its own. Super subtle. Again, a creation of mine called Large Space from Chill Vibes Volume 2. Can't emphasize enough, head over to synthdesigner.com, download these packs for free, create your own music. I'm asking nothing here other than you give it a try. So let's take a look at how it's made. This one is a little bit more complicated. It's using a few different wave shapes here, including a sub sign here, and then we have the PWM Juno and the saw and try. Of course, this is the actual saw. Let's see how I create this. So it has that slow attack that rises from nothing to something there in the envelope. And then envelope 2 is really kind of opening up that filter. This wave shape here is an octave up. It's pretty subtle actually, and it's panning back and forth is another thing I'm doing here. With the LFOs, I'm giving some detunement, and then the panning is going back and forth. It's super subtle, but it's definitely there. That sub is doing a little bit of work too. And that noise is unfiltered and really giving us a bunch of sound there. So it's kind of got that heavenly kind of organ type of sound to it, because the PWM Juno's just got so many different elements. It's kind of a saw, it's kind of a square. And then here I put on some hyper, some 4 voice unison here, a bunch of chorus here. The chorus is doing a lot of work. It's at 100% wet level. Then I have some delay. Reverb again is on the bus. And then some EQing to take out some of those lows. So it's really doing a bunch of work. As you can see, it's one note here. It's adding so much of that element. Let's just quickly replay that part. It's a very kind of choir sound. It sounds like almost someone is singing that one note, and it's giving that kind of depth where all of a sudden we have no main synth and that ARP is playing. Then that synth comes back into play here. And it's opening up that filter again like at the beginning of the song. We have this kick coming back in, slowly building back up, and it builds into kind of this neat little section here, and then we're going to go right through the outro. The outro is very similar other than those elements of different kind of automation which kind of go all over the place a little bit, but generally it's pretty similar. But we have this little section here I want to play for you, and then we're going to talk about that first before the outro. Okay, so I think the biggest thing you notice here is that sidechain saw synth. So it's a new element that actually comes into play here, pattern 13. Just listening to it, it's not a whole lot. It's playing the chords again. This is as basic of a preset as it comes. It's just a bunch of saw layers. But what I did here was an important kind of differentiator here. So what I did was take what's called some ghost drums, a ghost kick, and created a pattern. So this pattern here is pattern 3. And what do you notice? Nothing is playing even though it's going. And so we're going to go to the mixer track here and take a look at the ghost kick. And as you can see, it's not routed to the master. What it's actually routed to is the main synth and the saw synth here. So what it's doing is it's creating the pattern. And as you can see here, it's actually there, this basic pattern, but it's only playing, it's only affecting through the sidechain essentially. So this main synth has its fruity limiter and its sidechain here, the compressor, ghost kick here, and then we can also see in saw synth, again, compressor, the ghost kick again. So what that does is when that kick plays, it essentially sidechains and ducks the volume of the synth that you wanted to duck, right? So right here is where it kicks in, and then we're going to play it and we're going to listen to it. Take a look at the limiter. As you can see, it's ducking the volume out of the way without actually creating any volume like of a kick, right? Because it's not routed to any sort of master. It's only routed to these channels where it's meant to create that sidechain. And that's just a very basic way of creating it through FL Studio. Any DAW could do the same. Just sidechain it to whatever element you want, unroute it from the master, sidechain to whatever element you want, and then it's gonna create that effect. And you could do it with any pattern. You can create any pattern you want with the kick. So that's just a cool little thing I did here to kind of go back into the main aspect of the song. And then I have the regular drums kicking back in. As you can see here, I actually did a high cut and then faded them back in slowly. I had a sweep here, and the sweep actually has that sidechain element too. So let's just pick it back up over here, and it goes right back into the outro. And that main synth and the detune synth really kind of come in more and more. That main synth opens up more and more. And then as that ARP comes back in, it kind of goes back down. I kind of cut it off more. And then that last bar there, I take the bass out completely. I cut out the drums and just have that little ARP to finish off the song. So that's the whole song. Hopefully you really got some information here on how to kind of create your own Chillsynth song. Again, as you saw, so many of the elements were from my preset packs. Go ahead and download those for free at synthdesigner.com, or feel free to kind of follow along and make your own sounds from what I showed you. Hopefully you got some cool ideas here. As you can see, I used just some pretty basic sounds, some cool effects. Not too many. I don't feel like this is a song that's super complicated. I really wanted those main elements to shine through, like the ARP and the main synth, and then just complemented with some things here or there. As you saw, there's no main melody even, some basic drums, and of course your basic kind of sweeps and risers and stuff like that. But it's a simple song. I find it was pretty effective, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Let me know down in the comments how you like this. The song, the actual tutorial, if you found it helpful, and let me know what kind of other videos you'd like to see in the future. In the meantime, I hope you really enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time.